Episodes in American history, or I should say world history, some of the darker episodes have something in common with them, and that is internment camps, or camps, if you will, where they put people in them for, you know, reasons that the politicians at the time think are good ideas. And we're seeing a repeat of this. Let's look at New Zealand. It's happening across a lot of other places as well, but we'll start with New Zealand. We have some clips of this, so take a look.
Okay.
As part of our overall national response to this new outbreak, I am now directing medical officers of health that all cases, confirmed cases, are to be managed in a quarantine facility. Now, this is different to how positive cases were managed when we were last at levels 4 and indeed 3, and shows how serious we are about limiting any risk of ongoing transmission, even in self-isolation and including to others in the household. This will apply to any cases and also close family members who might be at risk as appropriate. A reminder, these facilities have been set up specifically and have excellent processes and resources in place to look after people with COVID-19, including health staff on site at all times, and it will help us avoid any further inadvertent spread into the community as part of our overall response.
I've got a number of questions about people what do we do if someone refuses to be tested? Well, they can't now. If someone refuses in our facilities to be tested, they have to keep staying. So they won't be able to leave after 14 days. They have to stay on for another 14 days. So it's a pretty good incentive. You either get your tests done and make sure you're cleared, or we will keep you in a facility longer. So I think most people will look at that and say, I'll take the test.
There's something about how smug that prime minister is that is very disturbing, and she's just coming off the back of a landslide win, right? She's been re-elected as prime minister in New Zealand. We had reported lightly on the idea that these internment camps may be there, and now I guess, you know, there's probably people that don't want to go along with the test, and she's like, fine, we'll throw you in there and throw away the key.
Yeah, and that was Dr. Ashley Bloomfield, the first clip of that gentleman. He's the Minister of Health in New Zealand. So this isn't some health official in some small city somewhere with a harebrained idea. This is the head guy in New Zealand. And like you said, that's Prime Minister Ardern in New Zealand as well, who's saying this with a smile. And Dr. Bloomfield said, remember, all confirmed cases, this is a change in policy, all confirmed cases are going to be managed in a quarantine facility. So what does that
that
look
right
like?
There is disturbing, right? Because what we're seeing is something we've been seeing in America too, I think, is it's like it just keeps clamping tighter and tighter, whether there's success or no success. I mean, New Zealand seems to have avoided getting any cases on their little island. Now, of course, they have no tourism. They're going to be bankrupt in God knows how long because no one can make any money. Nobody can travel there. If you do, you're going to this internment camp. But the idea that's saying, even though we've been successful, we're even clamping down harder. And this is like the bright shining star of the World Health Organization, this approach, right? I mean, it makes you think how many countries are going to be using this approach. And you know, this idea of testing, right? The PCR test is not very accurate. Is that the test that they plan on using?
Yeah, from my understanding, absolutely. And we've had if you will, like a beta test of this just happening recently with 3 British teens. They were in Italy. They were teaching over there, and they tested positive for the coronavirus, and they were put in a quarantine facility. And there you see the headline. And in the article, I'm going to read this quote from there because this is important to give people an idea what they may be in for. It says, quote, all of their symptoms had cleared up within 2 days of the test result, but the 3 men were put in a converted hotel, kept in separate rooms with food brought to their door in plastic tubs. Despite feeling well and being told that they were unlikely to be infectious, they kept testing positive and could not meet the requirement of 2 negative test results. The process left them totally confused, given WHO guidelines saying they should have been discharged within 2 weeks. They said medics had told them that tests were probably detecting dead coronavirus cells that are left in their systems. Luckily for these kids, the law changed and it allowed only extended time without symptoms instead of those 2 negative tests because they were
months, right? After 2 months, the law changes. I mean, that's got to be terrifying. And I would imagine if you're in there, you're thinking, what are we really being held for? Who's doing these tests? What laboratory? Are we really even testing positive? Are they lying to us? Can you imagine how convenient this is going to be to take away anyone's due process in any country? Yeah, we're just picking you up, and you're testing positive, so we've got you, while they investigate, try to figure out, what they're going to charge you with. Imagine if criminals start getting handled like this. I mean, it's really scary, but it's not just Italy, right? We're starting to see this. It's not just New Zealand. Where else have we been seeing this discussion?
Yeah, we're seeing it in Canada. In Canada, they're actually having open debate on the House floor regarding these camps. So we have this clip here of Randy Hillier. He's a politician from Ontario. So let's take a look at this one.
All right.
The next question, the member for Lanark, Frontenac, Kingston.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Premier. In my supplemental question yesterday, I asked this government if the people of Ontario should prepare for internment camps. In September, the federal government posted a call for expressions of interest for contractors to supply, provide and manage quarantine isolation camps throughout every province and every territory in Canada. These quarantine isolation camps, however, are not limited to people with COVID, but provide a wide latitude for many people to be detained. Surely this government is aware of the intentions to build these isolation camps from coast to coast. And my question to the Premier is, how many of these camps will be built, and how many people does this government expect to detain?
Question.
Here's the RFP, and in the RFP it uses clear language to express that these camps can be used for a broad spectrum of people, not limited to travellers. Indeed, it doesn't even mention international travellers. It's just a broad latitude of people. And I'll send over the copy of the RFP after. So your government must be in negotiations and aware of these plans to potentially detain and isolate citizens and residents of our country in our province. So, Speaker, to the Premier, where will these camps be built? How many people will be detained? And for what reasons?
Question.
For what reasons can people be kept in these isolation camps? And I'd like to have the Premier assure the people of Ontario.
Member, take a seat. The next question.
What happened there? Did he get a response?
Looks like he got his, it looks like he had his microphone cut, his audio cut on his microphone.
So this isn't a question that's allowed here, even though he seems to be reading from government documents, a discussion of who were we putting in these internment camps. Very, very disturbing, right? And these are, and how many people are aware this is happening in their governments? How many governments are having these conversations and we don't even know what's going on?
Estamos hablando de 18 mujeres, 7 niños que cumplían con esta cuarentena en la base de Dimabel, en Piribebuy. El día de hoy pudieron salir finalmente para regresar a sus casas, a sus comunidades, y de esta manera recibían este certificado, primero por el buen comportamiento que han tenido, siempre colaborativos, y lo más importante es que finalmente dieron negativo a las pruebas de COVID-19, con lo que pueden regresar a sus comunidades normalmente. Y de hecho, este mismo lugar ya había recibido a otros 22 compatriotas que semanas atrás también dieron negativo, y ahora ya se trabaja para reorganizar el lugar y poder seguir recibiendo a compatriotas que vayan regresando del exterior.
Estamos pidiendo en este momento al pueblo paraguayo y a la prensa para denunciar que estamos en una situación muy preocupante desde que terminamos nuestra cuarentena el pasado jueves 30 de abril. Los resultados de las pruebas nunca han venido a nuestro poder, nunca nos han mostrado quién es positivo, quién es negativo, pero nos pusieron 140 personas aquí, en este local que se puede ver, ¿verdad? Que es un tinglado, sin las mínimas condiciones sanitarias para poder cumplir una cuarentena sanitaria.
Porque ya te está heavy. Vai pude arroz allá. Cuando mejoramos hoy 20 positivos. Hoy ponamos sobre con cumplita. Pero va a ser con la voz yo ari para llegar ya está.
Ya no quieren estar más hacinados y exigen ser liberados si es que ya cumplieron con la cuarentena o las pruebas negativas.
Pero puta llega la virus, pues. Ahora no contagia llega, pues. Vale la negativa no nos deja la positiva trata y ve a ver.
No ni po no la contigo, ve.
Negativo no ni po no con ve. Hamba usa ko ore negativo, 3 veces se negativo, 3 veces se. Hamba usa botella pollo. Apu tata ko ave ha no hina o me ese positivo pues era ha me baby. Negativo, ve.
Porque tenemos negativo, necesitamos salir urgente de acá. 3 veces negativo, no podemos quedar acá. Y otra cosa, no vamos a quedar más callados.
Pero ahora estamos lanzando este programa junto con el Gobierno Nacional de 15 hospitales penitenciarios en la provincia de Buenos Aires. La verdad es que es importantísimo porque le da la capacidad al sistema penitenciario de atender a los internos adentro de instalaciones penitenciarias, lo cual en pandemia es claro, pero fuera de pandemia también, porque esto permite que el sistema penitenciario se dé también una política educativa y una política sanitaria de salud para los internos. Así.
Right. And we have a part of that contract we can take a look at from Canada, where it does not say international travelers. So this is from Public Health Canada. And some of the quotes in there, it says, in anticipation of possible continued need for quarantine sites over the next 1 to 2 years, given the COVID-19 pandemic, PHAC is considering having a third-party service provider provide and manage the existing sites and all the related services on its behalf. Goes on to say security services 24/7 at the sites by licensed guards, which will be contracted separately. Now, in this contract, it admits there's 11 sites currently, and they're looking at possibly expanding that to 9 more. So this is a contract for a third-party service to manage those. And it, like Hillier said in there, it doesn't say international travelers. It actually leaves it open for a wide range of people depending on the need for during this COVID-19 pandemic.
It's really scary, man, when you start thinking of all the tracking discussions and the cell phones and big tech joining with pharma and pushing this in governments. And now, you know, guards around internment camps in Canada, of all places. I went to film school in Canada. That is not a really very rebellious crowd. I'm pretty sure they would go along with like, hey, I'll just stay in my house. I'm cool, man. You don't need to stick me in a prison. Really scary stuff. I mean, and it makes you think, is this, you know, the ghost of Christmas future? Is this where we're all going? I mean, it sounds like the WHO must be dictating this to the different nations around the world. And I just keep imagining, while this is going on, in China, the biggest dance parties breaking world records are taking place. Based on the things I said, you know, it's unbelievable. And I imagine people are saying, well, what about America? We're not that crazy, right?
Yeah, well, it's refreshing to see people stand up like they did there in Canada. And I remember from May, you took concern to what someone said in Ventura County. This was Robert Levin, Ventura County's public health director. And we have a clip of that. So let's take a look at what he said.
We are beginning a program today, which will certainly grow into something larger and larger, and that is a community contact tracing program. We've done contact tracing all along. When we find someone who has a COVID infection, those people are immediately isolated. But we also work with them to figure out who their contacts were. As we do more testing, we will find more and more people who have COVID-19. And again, we'll isolate every one of them, and we will find every one of their contacts, and we will make sure that they stay quarantined, and we'll check in with them every day. We're going to do a more complete job, and we're going to do a more meticulous job of making it less and less possible for others in the county to run into someone with COVID-19 infection. It's not just our county. There are going to be thousands of people hired who will be these contact investigators throughout the state. And this is occurring in many, many other states as well, perhaps all of the states in our country. Some of the people we find are going to have trouble being isolated. For instance, if they live in a home where there's only one bathroom and there are 3 or 4 other people living there, and those people don't have COVID infection, we're not going to be able to keep the person in that home. Every person who we're isolating, for instance, needs to have their own bathroom. And so we'll be moving people like this into other kinds of housing that we have available.
O preguntarle puntualmente cómo es esta convivencia y qué recaudos se están tomando ahora. Estamos en comunicación con el ingeniero Oscar Rolón. Buenas tardes, ingeniero, ¿cómo están?
Buenas tardes.
¿Usted es uno de los albergados en Ciudad del Este?
Sí, señor.
¿Exactamente dónde está usted, señor?
Estamos en el Parque Mercosur, kilómetro 10.
¿Y cómo es la convivencia en ese lugar? ¿Es así como estamos viendo?
Y mira, esas cosas que dijo Sara ahí, nosotros tenemos 2 duchas para 100 personas.
¿Para cuántas, perdón?
Para 100 personas, 2 duchas.
¿Y cómo se turnan?
Y solamente Dios sabe, mi amigo. Tenés que esperar que fila. Día de por medio, no, inviable esto.
Y estamos viendo en las fotografías, ingeniero, que hay aglomeración de personas que se juntan en determinados momentos.
Sí, todo el día. Aquí nadie controla eso. Nadie controla. Aquí no hay ventana, hay 100 camas, ¿verdad? En realidad, cuando llegamos al militar dijo que había 97 camas, 3 personas duermen en el suelo, ¿verdad?
Entendemos que la gente busque distraerse un poco, pero estamos viendo que hacen actividades deportivas
No,
de
sí.
manera muy cercana.
Mira, tenemos una cosa, no hay comedor, no hay nada. Cada uno come en su cama, ¿verdad?
Y si hay dos duchas, dijo usted, ¿cómo están con el tema del sanitario y las necesidades fisiológicas? ¿Cuántos baños tienen?
Y en total hay... serían 5, 2 duchas y 6 water.
Para 100 personas.
Para 100 personas.
Y allí me imagino que se da la otra complejidad, cómo administrar los tiempos y la higiene por sobre todo, ingeniero.
No, mira, la limpieza por cuenta nuestra, ¿eh?
Y no todos cumplen seguramente.
No, claro que no.
I remember that. In fact, I got into a lot of trouble, right? I put a tweet out with that video that said, what would you do if your 6-year-old son or daughter tested positive for COVID-19 and was taken from your home to a quarantine center by Ventura health authorities? This shocking video demands that you plan ahead. Hashtag be brave. Hashtag history repeating. That was all the way back in May 6th. Of course, that eventually got my Twitter feed shut down. They called it false information. And what's really interesting is that, you know, we were talking about, oh, we should revisit that tweet you had. And suddenly on my tweet, I had complained, and I even erased it. So they were going to make me erase certain tweets if I wanted to get back up and running. I was down for nearly a month, and this was what had happened. And so I erased it because I wanted to be able to get out and talk to people. But now it's back up. And it's back up. And I was thinking, why is it back up? And then this is something I want to sort of celebrate in the moment. We got an email from one of the viewers of the Highwire to our website, and it's to the whistleblower at ICanDecide.org. One of our viewers said, have you seen this discussion about camps essentially on the CDC's website? Now, this is what this is for. This is what's so brilliant about our audience, is so many of you are really, really smart out there. This only came to our attention 2 days ago. There was a discussion about a form of camps on the CDC website. I sent that over to you, Jeffrey, because we've been running around over here. What did you find?
Yeah, it was called Operational Considerations for Implementing the Shielding Approach. That's an interesting word there, to prevent COVID-19 infections in humanitarian settings. Now, this is guidance to, it's called to, quote, highlight potential implementation challenges and to guide thinking. And it says here, the shielding approach aims to reduce the number of severe COVID-19 cases by limiting contact between individuals at higher risk of developing severe disease and the general population, low risk. High risk individuals would be temporarily relocated to safe or green zones. Here we go with the military terms, established at the household, neighborhood, camp sector, or community level, depending on the context and setting. They would have minimal contact with family members and other low risk residents. So let's take a look at the table here, how they break this down. We have household level, neighborhood level, and camp sector level. Basically, this is all built around movement of individuals inside and outside of this thing called the green zone. And you can see at the camp sector level, there's going to be one entry point used for food exchanges, a general meeting area where people can have visitors. Kind of sounds like a prison. So let's continue into this document. Brilliant stuff. The further quotes, the shielding approach proposes that green zones be maintained until one of the following circumstances arises. Sufficient hospitalization capacity is established, effective vaccine or therapeutic options become widely available, or the COVID-19 epidemic affecting the population subsides. It goes on.
Just look at that line. I mean, when you hear Fauci saying till the end of 2022 is where he sees some sort of imaginary end to this, though the vaccine doesn't seem like it's going to bring it. Are we talking about the potential that some people could be in these internment camps being protected for their health and safety for, I mean, God knows how long? I mean, it's I think a lot of people are probably shocked right now to know that this is not only being thought about, it's written and on the website at the CDC.
Yeah,
outrageous.
these interim guidelines. Absolutely. These are interim guidelines. So until the COVID-19 epidemic subsides, we're being told by CNN that this is a new normal for the rest of our life. So, and how do they define effective vaccine? A lot of questions there.
Yeah.
But let's go back to this document.
Okay.
There's a couple more quotes that just they need to be out there. Thus, in addition to the risk of stigmatization and feeling of isolation, this shielding approach may have an important physiological impact and may lead to
Right.
yeah, psychological impact, and may lead to significant emotional distress, exacerbate existing mental illness, or contribute to anxiety, depression, helplessness, grief, substance abuse, or thoughts of suicide among those who are separated or have been left behind.
You think?
And finally, yeah, the shielding approach is intended to alleviate stress on the healthcare system and circumvent the negative economic consequences of long-term containment measures and lockdowns by protecting the most vulnerable.
Wow.
So here we go. The economy is essentially ruined because of some myopic decisions by health officials. Is this their solution to fixing it? Is we'll help the economy by putting these people in a camp?
I mean, and that's what, I mean, I'm concerned when I watch this because I've been saying, and we go along with like the Great Barrington Declaration has been saying, you know, focus protection, protect those that are, you know, over the age of 65 with other comorbidities. But when I've been thinking that, I'm thinking, you know, let them shelter in place, let them stay in their nursing homes. Let's make sure that they're really taken care of in the world that they live in. I wasn't thinking you're going to take them and stick them into prison and then hope that the anxiety doesn't take over and the depression. They start killing themselves in the isolation that they're saying could clearly go on for years and years. And you know, this document looked like when I saw it, it's like we're talking the end of July was when this, I think, got posted, which makes you wonder, New Zealand's moving this direction. It looks like Canada's moving this direction. Italy's moving this direction. Obviously, our CDC is considering moving in this direction. What has kept them from doing it so far? And I thought about, you know, when I was looking at this, like Donald Trump, is it possible that they could say to the President of the United States, you know what, sorry, you're in this high-risk group, so we're going to stick you in a camp for your own good, and there it is. We just watched the President of the United States disappear. I wonder if that's why Donald Trump hasn't implemented this, because it might just put him into some prison system in the country. I mean, crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah. And where's the conversation at behind closed doors with the CDC as we speak today? Where is this conversation? Is this are we going to have a news conference tomorrow and someone's going to come out and say, hey, guess what? Here's the new implementation we're doing, just like New Zealand did, or just like in Canada.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it makes me want to fire whoever wrote this thing. If it's Redfield or Fauci, I don't care who's president next year. What really makes me concerned is whatever lunatic has come up with this. Clearly, if they are allowed to continue on their plan, this very well, I mean, this is no longer a dystopian novel, right? This is no longer conspiracy theory. These things are sitting on U.S. government websites. Incredible reporting, Jeffrey, and thank you to that viewer out there for sharing.
And it's not just about the forced quarantines, but it's also about what they are planning on doing with the children that are in the situation of this forced quarantine. Now, I am sad to say that, and I'm getting here right now, that when I was given the understanding by someone in Washington that this was going on in Washington or getting ready to go on, and then they said to me, and they're going to, there's children, youth and children's quarantine centers. And I said, I don't know if I believe that. I can't believe that they would actually take the children from their parents and put them in quarantine centers with people they don't know, doing things that they don't know, injecting, whatever into their body that their parents don't know. They surely wouldn't do that. And so I said, if you're going to say those things, you better give me some evidence. So they sent me some evidence, and and so I'm going to show it to you, or at least I'm going to read it to you. So if you go to governmentjobs.com, and you'll see that the Washington State Department of Children's, Youth, and Family has posted a job. You can also do it on ZipRecruiter. And you'll see again the Washington State Department of Children and Youth Families. And this is what the ad for the job position is. DCYF, so the Department of Children and Youth Family, is seeking current DCYF employees in King, Snohomish, and Benton counties to supervise and support children and youth in emergency quarantine centers. We are looking for current DCYF social services specialists, three S's, to care for children who are either COVID-19 positive or who may have been exposed to COVID-19. There are 3 locations: Cedar Springs Camp Visitation Center and Bethel Church. Responsibilities include supervising social service specialists, providing direct care and supervision, assessing and responding appropriately to meet children's needs, and engage in various educational and social activities with residents. I really wish that I was making this up. I really wish that I was making this up.
I wanted to talk just a little bit more about the isolation for families involved in this. So that means the household, the family will need to isolate with them. And if a person cannot do that, there will be other isolation facilities for them away from their household. And one way or another, we got to make sure we take care of people's health. For people,
yeah, how do you like that? One way or another, we got to take care of people's health. Who cares about their family, their children, their freedom, their job? Who cares as long as they're healthy, right? Now, I want to put this in perspective. You might say, well, Ammon, you're missing the point. No, I'm not missing the point. The Washington COVID-19 death rate is 0.01260669. There's been less than 1,000 people die from COVID-19. That's what the numbers skewed. You know that that's not accurate. That's with them counting pneumonia, flu, all of that. They still only have 908 people that they've claimed died from COVID-19. There's 7.6 million people live in Washington. That's a 0.021260669%. But hey,
and one way or another, we got to make sure we take care of people's health.
Right? One way or another, we got to take care of people's health. That's the most important thing. Unbelievable.
For people who
now listen, let's go on and listen to this.
For people who finally won't comply, they're going to have to comply eventually. No one's looking to make this a federal crime. The reason we can do the contact tracing is twofold. Number one, we've stood up an army, so to speak, and we now have 1,391 people who on just a couple days' notice can be available to do what's necessary to do this contact tracing. As far as refusal, it just shouldn't come to that, and it really hasn't. And that would be legally enforceable. We would make sure that people know the seriousness of that issue. It's one of the reasons I'm glad we have the Guard, who are very disciplined and follow orders. I'm glad we have Department of Licensing people and the Department of Health. The budget issue, as you know, our preliminary numbers is that we'll be at a, just under $7 billion deficit for the next 3 years, and this can be a real challenge for us.
There's also something very wicked brewing in Washington, D.C. So Washington State and Washington, D.C. And again, I wish I was wrong. But the 116th Congress, that's our Congress right now in Washington, D.C., is proposing a bill. And it is H.R., again, it's hard to believe, but it's H.R. 6666. Now I'm going to read you the description at the very first paragraph of this bill. H.R. 6666. To authorize the Secretary of Health and Human Services to award grants to eligible entities to conduct diagnostic testing for COVID-19 and related activities such as contact tracing through mobile health units and as necessary at individuals' residence and for other purposes. My friends, I did not read that incorrectly. It is House Bill 666, and it authorizes the Secretary of Health and Human Services to conduct related activities such as contact tracing through mobile health units as necessary at individuals' residence and for other purposes.
One way or another, we got to make sure we take care of people's health.
Okay, my friends, this is the line in the sand. I have heard over and over again from people all across the country, especially militias. Oh, we're preparing for the day that we hope never comes. Well, that day's already come and gone. It's already gone. But I hope and pray that the line in the sand is at least our children and our families. I hope that it's at least that line. And I hope that we can unite together as neighbors and friends, as people who love each other, as people who love God, and stop these wicked people from what they're doing.